Welcome back to Change Ed.
Change Ed.
I am your host of your favorite podcast show in all of the education world, Andrew Kuhn, education consultant from Montgomery County Intermediate Unit. And here with me,
Patrice Semichek from the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit with the same title, even though we have explicitly said we're not doing them anymore.
Yeah, it's sticking though. It's very sticky.
It's aggravating me.
It's almost like what is that? Like that rub-on glue? What are glue sticks? It's like that sticky glue that you just can't get.
I was like museum glue.
Yeah, it's sticky.
Okay. Well, no.
We have an awesome show for you today, as always. And today we have with us a super person.
Super. Teacher extraordinaire.
With a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge. And
super fun to talk to.
We're going to end up with more than one quote. We have quotes that we want to write down based off multiple conversations. Yeah. So we'd like to welcome to the show Stephen Rodriguez. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, guys.
Stephen, if you don't mind just introducing yourself to the Change Ed Nation and sharing with us who you are, where you are, and maybe even how you got there.
Sure. My name is Stephen Rodriguez. First and foremost, I'm a teacher. I happen to have the role of superintendent, where I've actually had that role now for 8 years, 27 or 28 years in education, something like that. Wow. Started out as a special education teacher. Did my first stint in 3 different districts in Berks County. I won't bore you with the list there, but suburban, including rural, and I actually started out in the Reading School District, then moved on to Pottstown, where I've been here since 2005, believe it or not. First as the high school principal, then as the director of HR, where I got to hire a lot of people. And that gave me some excellent perspective. And then again, for the past 8 years, I have been in the lead role here as superintendent of schools, or as I like to call it, head teacher.
I love that. How did you go from special ed? I'm special ed. I taught autistic support for a few years, so my heart is in autism. But how did you go from special ed to principal? Was that like a major leap? How was that transition? How did that go?
For me, it was really easy. If you can handle an emotional support role, assistant principal takes notice of you, then you get offered an assistant principalship because you can handle the toughest kids.
Yeah, you can.
And then you learn how to be a principal while you're assistant principaling, and the rest is history. So,
I've always felt like if you can handle emotional support, you can handle anything.
Yeah.
You've got the parent side of it, you've got the kid side of it, you've got all of that, and if you can handle that without losing control or your mind, you've got it. You're good.
And hearing you talk, just giving us the cliff notes of your experience, and even what you both just were talking about, what I'm hearing is that you have this unique perspective of everyone. Because even with, like you said, with the HR and you're hiring, and so you have this unique perspective of all of these positions. So now in this position of leadership, you're seeing so many parts, not just kind of one direction or one aspect. You see all of it. And I imagine that would really inform you as you're making decisions or having conversations on direction and the impact on education.
Without a doubt. And I'm one of those people who actually used my master's degree. I got my master's in curriculum and instruction. So, learning how we effectively teach kids and how, if you map things out in the most efficient way, you get the biggest bang for your buck. It's been super helpful. When you're a leader, you must be a generalist. You might have more of a specialty. Musicians like to be really, really good at whatever it is they're performing, and they hone in on that very much so. But as a leader, you can't do that. You got to be pretty decent at a lot of things. You don't have to be an expert, but you definitely have to have that view. So that's been helpful. It certainly is helpful when you're dealing with new technology coming through the system and the potential impact that has for all different stakeholders.
Constantly. I feel like we're constantly in a state of change and flux when it comes to technology, and even with the addition of AI, right? COVID sent us on a very different trajectory in terms of just even one-to-one access, and now we have all these kids with one-to-one access, and now they have AI to go and do all this other crazy stuff. So yeah, your ability to understand. I also have a master's in curriculum and instruction, and once I went through that program, that definitely changed the way I see things and the way that I can, it almost kind of like opens up your eyes to be able to like map stuff out in a very different, more coherent way. I think that was one of the biggest gifts my master's did for me, was to give me the ability to see things in a very different light like that.
And for what it's worth, just a little plug for you guys, the training that I went through, I mean, in terms of how I viewed AI, pre versus post, talking to you guys, what was that? That was a total of maybe 3 hours.
Yeah, if that, I think it was like 2 hours. Yeah.
It wasn't like huge, but it was, you guys did a great job.
Thank you.
I've approached things a lot differently, and the word co-pilot may be permanently stuck in my brain, and I have shared that with other educators, and I'll tell you, it's we talk about certain concepts are very sticky, like as soon as you hear it, it kind of sticks to you. That's a very sticky concept. So as I've talked to both students as well as teachers, they're like, yeah, I get it, that makes a lot of sense, and it's a whole lot less scary.
Yes,
because when you first think of it, you go back to 1984 and Terminator and Skynet, and, like, oh, AI is going to do all the thinking for you. And then when you realize, well, wait a second, that's not what this is. I've used it more since that training than I ever have before.
That's great news. Yeah, we're very fortunate. We get to go to a lot of trainings and a lot of stuff. And it's been a lot of, when we talk about artificial intelligence, a lot of tools. And the tools change. Every 5 minutes, you have a new tool doing something different or updating or all this other stuff. And we've also talked to a lot of people who see AI as competition or something to be feared. And so when we shift the narrative, like you said, to the co-pilot mindset, it allows the fear of it's taking my job, it's taking away the kids' thinking, it's doing all of these things. It becomes a little bit, like you said, a little more palatable, right? A little bit more like, okay, I can use it and make my life a little bit easier while also encouraging kids to think differently.
Oh, you gave a great historical narrative. So I had one parent, a couple of board members, and they were like, oh yeah, this AI thing, it's just going to destroy learning. And I was able to say, like, hey, I want you to know I kind of held some of the same fear, but that's what they said about the calculator. And that's what they said about the desktop computer. Maybe we need to have a historical view on this so that we see, like, wait, is this just another tool that we can highly utilize? And it was, again, talk about sticky. They were like, oh yeah, I get it, you're right, graphic calculator. Turns out we still had to do math after that. Yeah, really good stuff.
And it allows you, thank you, it allows you to take it further. So now we're extending the learning even further than just the rote memorization of the facts and the things that we've been talking about in the past. Now, not do I only have to remember some of this, but I can free up my working memory while not having to remember all of it, and then take that information and then go 10 steps farther. So we're actually encouraging kids to think more when we use it as a co-pilot, as opposed to letting it prevent us from doing things.
And there are so many things that, by our human nature, we've actually stunted our growth on whatever they may be. And so by having conversations this way about AI, it opens up the possibility. You're like, wow, this really is endless, right? There are so many things that we could do. And I think we also find that there are gifts that you get back, right? Being able to put information and data into the spot that can synthesize it for you in minutes versus us taking days to comb over it is incredible. We've even been part of our learnings where they were talking about the nanoscience and how quickly they're able to get information back and learn about bees, about mosquitoes, about bugs instantaneously versus, let me study you for a whole season. I'll gather all the information. I'll take the next season or 3 seasons to process it. They said they're getting the information instantaneously. So now we can learn things faster. We can react quicker and be more informed. A big part of the conversations that we've had is, well, what do we do with that? Now that we have it, how are we informed consumers who know what the right thing to do is? Because just getting information faster, as we all know from the power of Google or the internet, doesn't necessarily mean that's the right information or the right thing to do. So that's where I really believe the power and the foundation of education in general comes in, to be like, how have we empowered students to be critical thinkers, to really process through information and then know what to do with it. So in so many ways, we are the best positioned option for learning how to use AI, because we have all of these tools that we've used. Even when we see things, in education, we say, I understand the depth of your learning or understanding by the quality of your questions. Mm-hmm. That even comes into play with AI, mm-hmm. right? Like with that co-pilot idea, it's like, well, okay, we asked for this. Well, now I need to know enough about what I'm asking about to be able to read through it and say, let me modify that a little bit, right? Like that's not exactly what I was looking for. But again, it speeds up the thinking process. But like I said, we have to know how to process that ourselves and what to do with that information once we get it.
Which is a shift in the way we teach. So I think that you being a superintendent have very hard job right now, because the way we're asking teachers to shift their instruction is not how they've ever been taught before in their life. And we do tend to teach the way we were taught. And so as a leader, being a generalist is extremely helpful, I would assume, because you're able to walk into a classroom and say, I feel you. And being able to be so open and say, I was kind of afraid of it too. And now I'm looking at it from this lens, and let's work on it together as a team. I think that is a very different way that we're approaching education, because again, we don't have to know all of this stuff. We have to know what to do with all of this stuff. And we're setting our kids up for a significant amount of success if we can teach them how to think as opposed to regurgitate information.
In some ways, the pandemic actually helped
mm-hmm.
us with that argument,
mm-hmm.
because things are so different
mm-hmm.
that what I find when I speak with teachers and principals and parents is we just want to figure out a way to win. We see that things are changing underneath our feet.
Mm-hmm.
So when there are methods that others have used that are research-based, and we know that the probability is that they're going to work, as opposed to sage on the stage, mm-hmm. or let's put up the new transparencies, called PowerPoint. And go through the homework from the night before that we know the kids didn't actually do.
Mm-hmm.
It just, for me, what I try to tell teachers is, listen, there's a lot of shoulds in the world. Well, they should be doing this and they should be learning that, but that's not what they are doing. So as teachers, we need to get out in front of that and figure out, where are they going? Let's map it out and give them what they need to succeed in the world that we don't even know what that's going to be.
It's going to be different tomorrow, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Chinese proverb, may you live in interesting times. I
would like a little less interesting, just for 5 minutes. Just for 5 minutes.
Yeah. Give us all a break. But that's the attitude of a lot of teachers. Mm-hmm. So if teachers are listening to us, I think the one thing that I would say is, trying to do things the old way is actually far more frustrating mm-hmm. and stress-inducing mm-hmm. than simply saying, okay, it's not the way. I mean, I acknowledge it is mm-hmm. not the way it used to be. What do I need to do to get ahead of it so that I can have a little bit of peace, and I can have, students who are achieving and feel like I'm a successful teacher? Mm-hmm. And I acknowledge that that's really important. I mean, if we don't feel successful, that's what leads to burnout, mm-hmm. and that's just not good for our kids.
I think a great example of exactly what you're talking about that we've experienced in our own work is that we'll say our executive functioning is not one of our strengths, right?
We're very creative, but we're figuring out how to be.
We're one of those creative minds. So we've talked about a lot of different ways to do it. And actually, it's been proposed to us more than once about, why don't you use like a online project management system tool. And when it was originally proposed, it was beginning, like we were in mid-year, and I'm like, I can't process shifting in this train wreck in the middle of the year. But to your point now, it's like we're looking at yet a different one, and I'm like, wait, this will like queue up to email somebody when something, it makes it so much more efficient. So it's not that it's taking away my job, it's helping me to stay at a higher level longer, stay in my strengths, which again is exactly what AI does. Is let's help you stay in your strengths and eliminate these mundane tasks. So not that they're not important, but if something else can help you do that, then you can stay where you work best and allow them, these other tasks to be done as well, making us all more efficient and quite honestly be able to achieve greater things because we can kind of, stay where we're best.
One of the things that I did to begin with is just not resist, but fail to understand how AI could help me in my role. You know, as a classroom teacher, when I've been able to do just a couple of things as it relates to instruction, thanks to your training, I've been able to apply it pretty well. But I've always struggled with, well, wait a second, as a superintendent, how can AI help me? You know, that's a significant question. And I talked to a couple other folks who have my position, and they're like, oh, well, I have it do this. It's very inapplicable to my situation because we all lead differently, right? So any communication that I give, let's say you're doing a letter or something of that sort. Well, for me, that letter is always going to be super specific, and no program can give the information that I can because I know what's going on. However, as a result of using it a little bit more, what I find is that it saves me a ton of time in research. So where I used to have to Google 15 different things and read a whole bunch of reports so that I could go back to my constituents or my board or teachers and say, hey, here's what we know, here's what we found. That, I mean, it hasn't dropped down to zero, but the time that I have utilized for research has gone down as a result of AI.
That's awesome.
You know, one thing we do, I mean, we've talked about so many great things. One thing that we do like to do is offer you like closing thoughts.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have
Sorry,
any
I forgot
closing
about the
thoughts that
closing
you'd like
thoughts.
to add in there just from our conversation? Maybe something you didn't get to say that you'd like to share?
You know, we have so many challenges in education, and I think a lot of times we don't give ourselves enough credit that we can figure out some really cool and creative ways to meet those challenges. And doing something different isn't an enemy. It isn't the negative or bad thing. It's just different. And when we are able to do that, to me, that's where you find out how to make the secret sauce. When you're able to try something different and do something new, all of a sudden, everybody wants to do what you're doing, or vice versa. Maybe you just decide that you're going to try something because somebody else had success with it. Yes, it might feel weird, but that's how we make differences in children's lives. And I'm really glad that there were teachers in my life that were brave enough to do something new because it's made a difference for me. So that's what I hope to do for the next generation. That's what I hope that all of us in this field will do is just be brave enough to do something different, because we're preparing kids for a world that we don't even know what that looks like.
Yeah, it's so true.
Throughout our conversation, I was thinking about moments, how there are moments in time where we can specifically look back and say, oh yes, this is when that happened. My lifetime, one of those moments could be the O.J. Simpson chase, or it could be Princess Diana, right? Or even the 9/11 with the Twin Tower. Like, there's so many moments that I remember. But there are also moments that I would say capture a longer period of time. So COVID was more, it was a moment, but it was a long moment in time. And in a lot of ways, I feel like where we're at is so incredibly exciting, and there's so much possibility, and it will end up being one of those moments where we say grandchildren will look back and say, oh, when, you know, at the birth of the generative AI, where were you? What were you doing? And what was it like? And that's an incredible moment for us to say, oh, you know, it was this endless possibilities and so much excitement. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know that it would be like it is now. We were just so excited. And that's, for me, the possibility is just so boundless, and then we can lean into it, or we can, you know, shy away from it. Either way, this is something that's happening. And what I appreciate so much about what you said today is just that, you know, no harm, no foul, and let's take a look at it. Let's kind of peek under the hood. Let's see what's there. And as we said earlier, a tool is a tool. If you find a tool that works for you, awesome. That doesn't mean that that's all that AI has to offer, but that might be a tool that really works for you. But more so, lean into the opportunity and the possibilities that we have just in education in general. There's so much that we can do, and it means so much to not only our students, to their community, to going on, but our potential for impact is so great and it's so meaningful. So thank you so much for coming on to the show and for giving us your time and sharing with us your insight, and also for all the nice things that we did not pay you to say about us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Have me back anytime. It was fun.
We definitely will.
So we want to remind all of our Change Ed Nation to make sure that you follow us. And for more information,
I was going to say, Make sure you do something different.
Oh, yeah, obviously. Yeah, do something different.
Because I wrote that down in quotes. I'm going to put that on my wall, Stephen.
No.
Do something
You're going to be on our wall. Do something different. Stephen Rodriguez.
Wow.
Good.
Teacher extraordinaire.
That's your new title, teacher extraordinaire.